And our fourth main topic today gets submitted to us by Kevin Yu, who writes, WarnerMedia CEO Ann Sarnoff did an interview with Variety dealing with the future of the DCEU after the release of Zack Snyder's Justice League. In the interview with Variety, Sarnoff says that Zack completed his trilogy. Let me try this again. Sarnoff says that Zack completed his trilogy of DC films and that the DCEU will expand with new characters and stories going forward, with no plans to go back to Snyder or do the Ayer cut of Suicide Squad. Sarnoff also denounces the toxic side of the Snyder fandom and Ray Fisher's allegations against Walter Hamada. What did you make of this bomb-dropping interview? All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yes, WarnerMedia CEO Ann Sarnoff did come out, did this interview with WarnerMedia, talking about a number of different things. One, which we'll just touch on here for a moment, that I thought was pretty interesting, was they straight up asked her, is it possible we can get more, like the director cuts, specifically the Ayer cut of Suicide Squad? To which she said, just directly, very short, nope, we have no plans to go and do that. That's not something that we're going to be doing. There's not going to be an Ayer cut. So that was a very, very short conversation. I honestly don't know of a lot of people. Like, it's not like there was numbers of people who wanted a Snyder cut. I've never sensed any sort of significant numbers of people who actually wanted an Ayer cut. Not to mention David Ayer said he's indifferent towards it anyway. He doesn't really care. So so it's not really big thing to hear about that. The prime thing, of course, has been whether or not we would see Snyderverse continue. Now, look, what we've been saying around here is just all we have to go on is what has Warner Brothers said and what has Zack Snyder said. And they have been saying the same thing. Zack Snyder said that he has no, direct quote, he has no plans to do any further DC movies. Warner Brothers said this is a cul-de-sac, that the Snyder cut was a cul-de-sac, move on. They each could change their tune. They could change their tune. That's just what they're saying. That's what Zack Snyder said. That's what Warner Brothers said. And we'll leave it at that. But apparently now it looks like Warner wanted to put kind of a final stamp on it to say, look, just so we're not creating false expectations, just so we're not creating false hope or whatever, we just want to be clear. We're moving on from Snyder Cut stuff now and the Snyderverse stuff, and we're going in our new direction. This is what came to us from Ann Sarnoff. This is, of course, in the interview in Variety, where they write, she says, I appreciate that they love Zack's work. Talking about those supporters of the Snyder Cut. I appreciate that they love Zack's work, and we are very thankful for his many contributions to DC. We're just so happy that he could bring his cut of the Justice League to life because that wasn't in the plan until about a year ago. With that comes the completion of his trilogy. We're very happy we've done this, but we're very excited about the plans we have for all the multidimensional DC characters that are being developed right now. That, of course, comes to us from Ann Sarnoff. So they're basically putting that to bed, and they're saying that we're moving on from this. Now, this really shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. And again, in a world where Jamie Foxx is coming back to play Electro, of course, anything is possible, regardless of what Snyder is saying right now, regardless of what Sarnoff is saying right now, regardless of what Warner Brothers is saying right now. And we live in a universe where anything is possible. That said, let's move off of possibilities onto probabilities. It seems that they're moving on. And really, some people are scratching their head and saying, well, why would that be? If you're a Warner Brothers executive, this really makes common sense. Because as we've talked about before, regardless of whatever the response has been to Snyder Cut at this point, Rob, the reality is Warner Brothers, from their point of view, they did several Zack Snyder movies, and they did not get the results they wanted. They didn't get the critical responses they wanted. They didn't get the audience responses that they wanted, and they didn't get the financial results that they wanted. And here's the other thing you've got to keep in mind if you are somebody who's a Warner Brothers executive. The fact of the matter is, when you look at those criteria, financial success, critical response, all that kind of stuff, when you look at the three most successful DCEU films, none of them are Zack Snyder's films. Now, to me, clearly the best DCEU film is Man of Steel. Zack Snyder, to me, gave us the best movie in the DCEU, hands down, Nothing else comes close. But if you're Warner Brothers and you're looking around, you're saying, okay, we did some Snyder films. We didn't get the results we wanted. Our 3 most successful films are films that Zack Snyder wasn't involved in. You just got to understand they just decide it's time to move on. I may not like it, Rob. I've said for a long time I would give a pinky finger to get a true proper Man of Steel 2. I would give a toe to see a Ben Affleck written by, directed, and starring in Batman movie. But it's not my company. And all I'm saying is you have to look at it from their point of view, that the black and white on the paper seems to make it pretty interesting. One other thing we'll talk about here just for a second, just because they brought it up in the question. Sarnoff, the WarnerMedia CEO, also did make reference of, every fandom, Rob, doesn't matter if it's Harry Potter, Star Wars, DC, or Marvel. Every fandom has a toxic side. Every single one does. If you think your fandom doesn't, you're delusional. Every single fandom does. But Sarnoff wanted to directly, specifically talk about the one they've had in DC for a while. And she said this: we're not tolerating any of that. That behavior is reprehensible no matter what franchise you're talking about or what business you're talking about. It's completely unacceptable. I'm very disappointed in the fans that have chosen to go that negative place with regard to DC. With regard to some of our executives, it's just disappointing because we want this to be a safe place to be. We want DC to be a fandom that feels safe and inclusive. We want people to be able to speak up for the things they love, but we don't want it to be a culture of canceling things that any small faction isn't happy with. We are not about that. We are about positivity and celebration. And of course, the other day, Zack Snyder himself kind of disavowed, Rob, another site. He's saying, hey, listen, just, I have nothing to do with all the hate side of this thing. I want this to be about positivity, blah, blah. We're hearing Sarnoff now speaking about that as well. So I thought that was interesting. Rob, I think it's safe to say both you and I, maybe on different levels, like I want to see Man of Steel. I want to see, nobody to me has done Batman on screen as good as Zack Snyder has. Like I've said for a long time, the Ben Affleck iteration of Batman in Batman vs. Superman is my all-time favorite on-screen iteration of Batman. Henry Cavill is my all-time favorite Superman. These are both done by Zack Snyder. I think both of us, to some degree, would like to see other stuff. But let me ask you, if you're in the boardroom of WarnerMedia and the topic comes up of understanding all the facts and numbers in front of you, do we move forward and make more movies like these, or do we go in these other directions that have won us Oscars and got us billion-dollar films? What do you add to that conversation in that boardroom if you're there?
Well, again, in a way, with this Flash movie, including Ben Affleck, that is an extension of the Snyderverse, whether you want to call it that or not. It certainly is, but it's in the multiverse. I would kill, John, to see that Deathstroke versus Batman movie that Ben Affleck was going to make.
That would be so good.
And the Snyder Cut left me like, look, fighting against Darkseid, I love the Fourth World. I love Kirby's creations. That's all fine. But really what I wanted to see at the end of Justice League, and I liked it very much, was I wanted to see the Terminator versus Batman. We kept hearing when that film was being developed how good the script was. I'd love to see Ben Affleck direct it, especially if it was more of a crime thriller kind of a thing like he was doing in The Town and also in Live by Night and with the first film he made. Why am I drawing a blank on it? But that first film, I really liked that as well. And if that's an extension to me, I wouldn't limit yourself by saying, well, the Snyderverse is dead. I understand they probably can't make another Justice League movie, especially not now, because you're looking at, we were talking about this earlier, a $300 million expense. They can't justify making a movie that costs that much. And that's the kind of money you're looking at if you're going to get all these actors together and make these films. I mean, they can make an Aquaman 2 and be pretty much assured they're going to make another $1 billion. So while I think that maybe the Snyderverse is dead, I could see them making offshoots of that Snyderverse with other people. And it always comes down to, with me, as I tell you, great characters and a great story. If they've got great scripts about these characters, I think they'll make them. Great scripts, great filmmakers, great characters. And I don't think we're going to see another Justice League movie, but we got Ben Affleck in the Flash film. and Ezra Miller's in the Flash film, so that by definition is kind of a sequel.
And Iris West, who was
Right.
in the thing, is in the Flash films. They remember, Rob, there were stories already written that Henry Cavill, that we'll see if these pan out, but there were stories in the major trade saying Henry Cavill had already signed up to do a couple of appearances as Superman in a couple of other films. That is an extension. So even if they say the Snyderverse is done, we're going to see extensions and legacy, if you will, of Snyderverse still continue on, because we got Ben Affleck come back. Now they're saying Michael Keaton may not come back, but we'll talk about that another time, I suppose. But we got Ben Affleck come back. We're probably going to see Henry Cavill again, even if it's not in the new overall Superman movie. So we're going to continue to see that legacy to some degree. I don't see them deviating from that too much. I don't see them. There was a time, Rob, that I thought they should have rebooted the DCEU a number of years ago. I think they're past that point now. I don't think they need to anymore with the success they've been having recently.
Nope.
What do you think?
No, I agree. And this emphasis on the shared universe, now they're just like, you know what? We have a multiverse now. We're going to do Matt Reeves' Batman. We're going to do James Wan's Aquaman 2. We're going to make Andy Muschietti's The Flash. By the way, Iris West, could there have been a cuter girl on screen? I don't think so. I can't wait to see her come back. I hope they have a great romantic When Harry Met Sally-esque relationship. I would watch Ezra Miller and her travel around the world if he never puts on the Flash costume. But that's just me. I think it's great. I think it's we're going to get a bunch of different movies that'll probably be, look, that, like you said, Joker, $1 billion, Aquaman 2, $1 billion. We got Black Adam starting to shoot next week. Whether it's part of the DCEU or not, I'm all there for that. I can't wait to see Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson as Black Adam. I mean, he looks exactly like an Alex Ross painting from the Kingdom Come miniseries. So what's not to love there? I could see that movie making $1 billion. So if the theaters are open. So to me, what's more interesting to me is, are we going to get great movies? And that's what it sounds to me like, with the diversification of the multiverse, we might be getting some really interesting stuff. And that's exciting to me.
Yeah, and again, I think that's the important. You raise a really great point, Rob, when you talk about the fact that, the role they have $2 billion films that they've got under their belts now. One of which was the first comic book film to win a major Academy Award with Best Actor. I guess you could say Heath Ledger was one of the major ones who won Best Supporting Actor. Joaquin Phoenix wins Best Actor. Their first huge critical smash was, of course, the first Wonder Woman film, which I think got into the 90s in the critic ratings and stuff like that, made over $800 million at the box office. They've got The Rock coming. They've got this Green Lantern project they're talking about coming. There's a lot of things that a lot of people are excited about right now, and it's going to be interesting to see how things go. But again, we do live in a world where Jamie Foxx is coming back as Electro. So never say never. But it looks like they are moving on. Question is, guys, for you, what do you think about this interview with the head of WarnerMedia and the direction they're saying they're going in? Do you want, like a Man of Steel 2, like I do? If you were Warner Brothers executive, could you understand the black and white facts of the situation? Would you proceed anyway? Could we see a divergence of HBO Max with its own standalone stuff versus... there's a lot of possibilities here. What do you guys think? Jump down into the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys.